Hello and welcome back to Kev's Hobby Showcase. I'm Kevin, and you may have seen me also on Tabletop Jones Productions presents Two Idiots Playing Board Games, where me and my friend John are the Two Idiots Playing Board Games, and we play usually strategy and miniature-based games, and usually have a wonderful and funny, and hysterical time doing it. Today, though, I'm going to do something a little bit different. One of my hobbies is comic collecting, and I've been teasing this. I don't know if teasing is the right word, but I've been hinting. I guess that's probably more accurate. I've been hinting at this for a while now, and I've wanted to do reviews of comic stories. Now, I'm not doing individual issues. I'm actually doing like whole storylines. And the one I chose to do is the one that recently ended in Marvel Comics called Gang War. So I'm not going to give like a whole retelling of the entire story, and also if anybody hasn't read it yet and plans to, yes, there will be spoilers. So if you want to read it first and then come back and watch this, now's the time to stop. Okay, so just giving you a heads up on that. This would be the time to stop. All right. So if you're still with me, then that means either you've read it or you don't care if I say anything, and then you're gonna go read it anyway. So, either way, let's get into it. Like I said, I'm not gonna give a whole retelling of the story. I am going to put up basically the key points that I think were relevant in the story, and I'm sure that there's probably going to be a whole bunch of points, a whole bunch of little tidbits that I'm going to overlook, because it was about a month or so ago that I finished reading all this. Because right now my current state, current financial state, I can only get my comic books once a month. So it's usually, sometimes with these weighty storylines they go several months. So I'm getting, a piece of it at a time until I get the whole thing. So anyway, I'll get into it. Have my notes. I didn't put that on camera. First part, of course, was they came out with the one shot called First Strike, and that's pretty much where the whole thing started. And what you basically saw was like a meeting of like the mafia heads, and Hammerhead at the time was basically the big leader. Possibly was referred to as the Kingpin, because Wilson Fisk at that point wasn't. He had kind of like left crime, being a crime boss, and was actually involved with Poison Ivy. No, sorry, not Poison Ivy. Of course, that's DC Comics. Crap, I'm blanking on her name already. Anyway, so he was involved with one of the mutants, newly discovered mutant, actually. Even though this character had been around for a while, and I can't believe I can't remember her name. So anyway, so he was pretty much out of the crime picture for a while, and so of course then like usual in real life, one leaves, another one comes in and just takes fills the void, I guess. So you see, like I said, you see this big meeting with all the crime bosses, and in comes Hammerhead, and he's got, of course, a beautiful woman on his arm. But little did he know that beautiful woman was the character Madame Mask, who basically promptly took a baseball bat to his head and seemingly killed him. But I'm going to give you a little tidbit here. I did see in one of the comics I bought recently that Hammerhead is alive and well. So, but anyway, Madame Mask had her sights on being the Kingpin. But of course, not everybody agreed. Not everybody wanted to follow her. So everybody who felt that they had a stake in it, who felt that they could take over and do the job better, they all came in, and like I said, like the story title said, a gang war ensued. So now I'm going to be trying something new with this video. I'm going to see if I can do the split screen, because I did take a little bit of video of all the individual issues, so hopefully that went through. So anyway, next up is I'm going to be talking. I'll talk about the issues of the Amazing Spider-Man where this predominantly took place in. This was predominantly a Spider-Man story. So basically, so Spider-Man, he knows what's going on because in First Strike, not only did Madame Mask take out, or supposedly take out Hammerhead, but the character Tombstone, his daughter, who happens to be the new Beetle, um, she was getting married to a good friend of Spider-Man's, who is also, I think, that was the son of Robbie Robertson. I think his, can't remember his name, unfortunately. See, I took notes, but didn't take them that thoroughly, I guess. Well, anyway, so Tombstone was shot at the wedding. So, and the whole wedding was totally disrupted, and it was like a whole big attack done by Madame Mask, and her people. So, so that pretty much prompted the new Beetle, who is, like I said, the daughter of Tombstone, to put her hat in the ring to become the new Kingpin as a measure of revenge. So then you got Spider-Man teaming up with She-Hulk. You got him he's teaming up with Miles Morales, who is also a Spider-Man. Daredevil, who is actually Elektra, taking up the Daredevil mantle. Because at this point in the comics, I believe Matt Murdock was. I think at this point he was in. No, he wasn't in jail yet. I think in jail at this point. I think at this point this was after they did their whole story in the Daredevil comics, where he and where Matt Murdock and Elektra were basically trying to take control of the Hand, which is of course a band of ninjas, very ancient band, total big organization of ninjas, and and kind of ended badly for them. But anyway, and also he teams up with the original Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, and eventually he does team up with Tombstone. And because Tombstone is, of course, very worried about his daughter, and wants to try to get her out, so because he doesn't want that kind of life for her, even though she, typical, they start your typical father-daughter thing where the parent is saying one thing and the kid's totally defiant, So, so anyway, so that's mainly, so in the Spider-Man comics, that's mainly what happens. I mean, he's basically fighting, this faction and that faction. I mean, just about everybody who comes out of the woodwork eventually winds up battling Spider-Man, who mainly teams up with She-Hulk because Miles Morales goes his own way for a while, facing the Prowler in his own book. Elektra, as Daredevil, goes to Hell's Kitchen to defend that, because Hell's Kitchen is always seems to be ground zero for something. And Spider-Woman actually goes after Hydra, who is making basically superpowered beings, and these beings are now being used by criminal elements, which of course spills into this gang war. So next I will talk about the Spider-Woman books, because this was basically a new series started just for this, but of course now it's ongoing. So the first 4 issues of the new Spider-Man series, and I'm sorry, not Spider-Man, Spider-Woman series, are part of Gang War. And so like I said, she goes after Hydra. And so now she has a history, of course, with Hydra from her origin story, but also it turns out that Hydra stole her infant son and kind of almost erased all record of him, all trace of him. So it's almost like, it's like in the comics, Jessica Drew is trying to desperately to find her son. It's like nobody knows he exists, which is kind of creepy. But that's how they did it. That's how they wrote it. And so then she winds up fighting Diamondback, who was working with Hydra to help produce these superpowered beings, and basically sell them out to the to the mafias. So let's see. Let me consult my notes here. So anyway, so now Spider-Woman is fighting this new Hydra agent called the Green Mamba. And she's fighting and fighting and fighting, and then finally she finds out that the Green Mamba is none other than her infant son, who was basically taken by Hydra, obviously aged to adulthood, and is now being given superpowers, some similar to hers actually. And so now, and also he has no memory of her, and absolutely hates her. So that's what she is basically facing, and that's what she's basically facing during this whole ordeal. So next we're gonna go to the there was a Luke Cage series just for Gang War. It wasn't an ongoing series, and it was a 4-issue series. So at this point, Luke Cage is the mayor of New York City, and he actually won the election over Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, because that was one of the first things he did. I didn't mention it earlier. One of the first things Wilson Fisk did do is he ran for mayor, and that's what started him coming out of the criminal business, I guess, if you could call it that. And so now, but also what Wilson Fisk did was he put into law in New York City basically a law banning vigilantes. So all the heroes are basically acting outside the law. I mean, not that they weren't before, but now it's even more so where they can get arrested. Nobody wants to, no police, no authorities are allowed to work with them, because then they'd be breaking the law as well. They'd be aiding and abetting. So now, of course, fights are breaking out everywhere. Violence is breaking out everywhere. And Luke Cage is basically being told, you got to do something. You have to do something. So what does he do? He actually dons a new costume and goes out and starts helping the authorities beat down the gangsters that have been, basically running roughshod all over New York City in every neighborhood. So yeah, he's out there. He's doing his thing. And he's basically saying, to hell with the law, to hell with this law. This is an unjust law, and vows to basically repeal it as soon as the gang war is over. So now so he's doing that, and next I'll talk about the excuse me, the Daredevil series, which was also written just for Gang War. It's a 4-issue series, and so, of course, like I said, Daredevil is not Matt Murdock, but Elektra. And and she goes to basically goes into Hell's Kitchen to protect it, because there's like gang war. The gang war is basically all over New York, all over Manhattan, and regular citizens are just being used as cannon fodder almost. And she promised Matt Murdock that she would protect Hell's Kitchen. So that's exactly what she's doing. Let's see, let me go here. So in this series, you have sorry, having trouble reading my own handwriting. So in this comic series, we are introduced to an organization called the Heat, which is yet another faction trying to take over and put who they want in as the Kingpin. And I was a member of, well, I don't know if she's a member of the organization, but definitely an assassin, a new one that hadn't been encountered before, called Bellona. And that's who Elektra, as Daredevil, is fighting throughout the series. And, the series is, in my opinion, this one was one of the better ones. I really enjoyed this one. And so next I'll talk about Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, which we have our favorite master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi. And he is basically head of this fire weapon society, which is basically a criminal element, but he's trying to turn it into a force of good. I mean, I don't know how successful he'll be, because when I was reading it, basically they were all kind of like frustrated with him and kind of really fighting against him, and like saying, this is not what we're here for, this is not what we do, and but he's trying to hold steadfast to changing the whole thing. And as always when something like that happens in a story, there's just a lot of conflict. And so he vows to protect Chinatown, which is, of course, part of, it's in Manhattan and is part of this big gang war, turf war, however you want to put it. And so the whole time, that's basically what he's doing, and he's fighting elements of his own faction. He's fighting criminal elements. It's almost like he's got enemies on every front. And then, of course, now I come to Miles Morales as his Spider-Man. So he basically faces off against the Prowler, which I believe is I'm not sure. I forget if he's related to him. I know they did that in the animated series, but I forgot if they did it in the comics. But he's facing off the Prowler, also the Hobgoblin, who seems to be the one who's really in this book, the one who's really trying to become like the new Kingpin. I mean, I think the Prowler is just he was just working with or for I should say Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin was actually the actual boss that was trying to who's trying to basically be one the one from his little faction to take over. And so anyway, Miles Morales winds up teaming up with the Scorpion, Matt Gargan, who is, I mean, I was actually a little surprised, and it seems like the Scorpion is actually trying to not be a criminal anymore. I don't know if that's going to be a thing for him, or if it's going to, I mean, I don't, this is not one of the books I normally collect, so I don't really know how far into it's going to go, but in it he also faces off against the Enforcers, which of course is Fancy Dan, Montana, and the Ox, and they're just like run-of-the-mill gangsters, no powers or anything. And usually we saw them in the regular Spider-Man book. I don't know if they ever were in Daredevil, because they're kind of like on that level as well, but definitely in regular Spider-Man. And so I haven't read any other issues of the Miles Morales Spider-Man, so I don't know if they were in any of those either. So anyway, all of these, I'm sorry, there's one more to do. So there's Jackpot, who is actually Mary Jane Watson, and so she wound up getting powers it's like this device on her wrist that is almost, it's like a whatchamacallit, like a slot machine type thing, where it's like three things they spin and then they come up with a power that she miraculously has. So it looks like they're trying to push, Marvel Comics is trying to push Mary Jane Watson as one of the newer heroes. I know after this, she's in a book with her and the Black Cat, which I've actually read. I've been reading that, and I did enjoy it. The only thing I wish that Marvel Comics would stop teasing us about a future with Peter Parker and Mary Jane married, if they keep on having her leave Peter Parker in the actual books. It's like, how long are you going to tease us about a future with the two of them married if you're going to keep them apart? So it's either write them together or just drop the whole thing. That's my opinion, though. But anyway, so all of this, they all come together. At the end of all of these series, they all come together, and it's like this big battle in Central Park. And, it's like it all comes together in there, and it winds up happening that Tombstone winds up on top. He basically becomes the new Kingpin, and at the very, very end, you have Tombstone basically vowing to take down Spider-Man, basically to prove that he is in fact one of the criminals, and and not in league with Spider-Man, because otherwise it's like basically if he doesn't do that, no one will, none of these criminals will trust him as the Kingpin. So, and I have seen an advertisement where Tombstone does go after Spider-Man. Actually, he goes after Peter Parker. So it's like he kind of knows who he is, I guess. I mean, I don't remember reading that happening in the storyline of Gang War, but it does look like that's what eventually is going to happen. So I mean, that isn't the whole story. It's just the few points that I felt like were relevant. I'm sure that there are other points that that might feel more relevant to any of you out there. So as always, I will say, if you have something you want to bring up about the story, please put it in the comments. I mean, you guys could have a whole big discussion in the comments about different aspects of Gang War. I do know that they are coming out with the trades. I have seen one. I think the main one has already been printed. I don't know how big it is, so I didn't get it. But if you know anybody, if you haven't read the story yet and you stayed with me throughout this entire video right now, and you want to read the story, if you know anybody who has individual issues, if you don't have access to a comic shop, or if you don't want to order the trade online yet, then you can, if you know anybody who has the individual issues, maybe try to borrow them, I guess. And so I mean, it is a good story. I did enjoy it. I will say that. I enjoyed Gang War very much. I always look forward to seeing the next part, and that's usually what you want. I mean, you want to read these comics and you want to go, ooh, what's going to happen next? And then, you know, when you find out what happens next, you're like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And you just keep going. That's why I love reading comics, is because there's always something new. There's always something else that's going to come out and try to top what's already been done. You know, that's why I've been collecting. I've been collecting this on my own since I was 13 years old. So I'm 52 right now. That's a long time. All right. So yeah, and I've been enjoying it all this time. And I'm sure, and I know that there are a lot of other guys, and I'm sure girls too. You know, a lot of men, a lot of women that are just like me, that have been reading for this long, and I've been loving every second of it. So, Gang War, I feel is worth it. It's worth, you know, if you, like I said, if you haven't gotten the individual issues, I mean, I know one trade is out. I'm sure there'll be more, because there's always, unless they put everything in the one, which I doubt that they did, because they don't usually do that. But I'm sure if you keep an eye out on like the different comic shops on their websites, or if you have access to stores, because I really don't have any stores near me, because, you know, I mean, unfortunately I don't have a car, so I can't go traveling all over Staten Island to try to find to go to Jim Henley's Universe or any of the other little shops that are around. The one shop I used to go to is gone, unfortunately. So I order mine online from one of the places in Manhattan, and you know, that's how I get mine. I don't know how any of you out there get yours, but you know, like I said, they have started putting out the trades. Eventually, they'll probably have all aspects of the story out in the trades, and you can get them all. You can just read them all at once, and I'm telling you, it's worth it. You know, it is, in my opinion, it's worth it. So enjoy. I mean, it's, great reading. I mean, I will always recommend reading comics, and so I'm gonna sign off right now. I was gonna say, please like and subscribe, and please support the channel as much as you can, and I'll try to have more of these comic book reviews out in the future. It's like right now, currently, I am reading Blood Hunt, which is a big crossover event with Marvel Comics. There's also other storylines that I've read, years ago, that I might try to bring up, but I gotta have time to prepare for those, and so yeah. So like I said, like and subscribe, give the channel as much support as you can. Also check out Tabletop Jones Productions. Please like and subscribe over there as well, and happy reading, and you have a great day. All right. See you all again.